I am Ad Hustler. I'm a blogger. I've been doing local lead gen for probably the last 5 years. I've been doing other kinds of internet marketing for up to 10 years, maybe 9 or 10 years. E-commerce, affiliate marketing, local marketing, lead gen, paid search. I do it all. This is Amanda.
I've been doing affiliate marketing. Actually, I've been doing local lead gen since 2007. Primarily very small businesses in small markets. I have a Twitter profile most of you actually probably know me by, if you know me at all. I'm Phillian. And I have a blog, but there's not a lot on it yet.
So this session's about local lead gen. How many people here actually do local lead gen? We have a pretty decent amount of people. So it might be a little more advanced than we thought. But this is how you can ask us questions. I have no idea how it works. I'm not exactly sure that I'll actually get your question because I just tried it and it didn't work. But you can tweet AFSUM ASW114A and we're supposed to get it. I think it's going to be beamed into my brain or something. I'm not really sure. But if anybody has a question anytime throughout the whole thing, just put up your hand and we'll just call you out and say your question out loud. Just don't even worry about interrupting. So some stats and facts about local marketing. 90% of consumer purchases are made within 20 miles of where people live or work. So local lead gen is a huge, huge industry. Spending on digital media for local advertising will grow about 19% through 2014. So it's a blossoming sector of the internet advertising industry, and it's not going away. 75% of new vehicle buyers in 2008 began their purchase with internet-based research. I don't know if anybody's bought a car here anytime within the last 5 years, but if you're going to buy a car, almost the whole purchase is almost based online. People research online. They go through third-party lead generation sites. They go through the manufacturer, and they go to dealer websites. And then they walk into the dealership, and at that point, they already know what price they're supposed to be paying, and they know what they want to buy. So there's not much selling involved anymore with car dealers. 60% of all purchases begin with internet research, regardless of if they're going to buy the item online or they're going to buy the item in person. People go online, they'll check out the selection of things that Best Buy has and then walk into a local Best Buy. So people are using internet for more than just actually completing the transaction. It's also a research tool.
What I've seen from local and small businesses is that increasingly people that are finding them first on the web, even to really granular things that you wouldn't have previously looked for people on the web for, like plumbers and pet sitters. I mean, this is just an exploding market, and there's really very little competition out there if you're actually interested in local lead gen for yourself.
So what is local lead gen? What's the definition? Local lead gen is generating leads for local businesses through a variety of methods. So not every local business applies to local lead gen. For instance, the local retailer, for the most part, will not apply to local lead gen. You really are targeting businesses that their sales are based off leads. So things like car dealers, things like plumbers, real estate agents, anything that's a complex sale typically is based around leads. So if you want to sell to local business and you want to do local lead generation for them, you're going to have to understand them. So where do they spend their ad dollars? I mean, to local businesses, advertising, this is not a new thing. They've been advertising since the beginning of time. They just don't do it online. So where they spend their ad dollars, the majority of local businesses, at least in the past, did mostly newspapers, print ads, half pages, quarter pages, any kind of print, penny savers. They're moving away from that right now because the results are terrible and newspapers are dying and they're starting to put their money elsewhere, which makes this an excellent opportunity for local lead gen because they have discretionary money in their marketing budget, but they have nothing to do with it. So it's a good time. They do radio. One of the reasons that local businesses do radio is because radio is locally targeted. Most radio stations don't have a very big reach, especially FM stations. And they also don't charge a lot per radio spot. So it tends to be a much used medium of advertising for the local business. Unfortunately, though, there's not much tracking to it, and the return on investment isn't really there. So most of the businesses are using it for branding purposes. The same thing with cable. Once you start getting into the larger local businesses like car dealers, large auto groups, franchises, any kind of a larger local business, they're using cable TV. And they don't use broadcast TV for the most part. They use cable because it's able to be targeted by a geographic location. The distribution of cable is usually, you can usually go down to a DMA, which is a designated market area. So they tend to use that quite a bit, but it's extremely expensive, cable television, and the return on investment is totally not there. Most of them are also doing this for branding, and a lot of large small businesses, they just like to see their face on TV for ego, just to stroke their ego, so they spend money on cable. A huge place that local businesses spend money is direct mail. Direct mail is basically the same thing as you might know as email marketing, but they do it through the mail. So postcards, sales letters, things of this nature, they mail it out to their customer database, or they buy lists and mail it out to their local area. And it's extremely effective still for small businesses. So you're going to probably see, if you approach small businesses, that quite a few of them are spending money on direct mail. Outdoor advertising is pretty popular. Billboards, like the back of shopping carts, buses. Small businesses buy this area because it's pretty inexpensive for the amount of gross impressions that they receive. The phone book, even though that's been dying out lately, advertisers still spend money in the phone book on a local basis. And that's an area where you could probably steal budget from, is their phone book business, because it's quite expensive. It's not that effective anymore. It's more and more fragmented. There's a lot of different phone book companies out there, and now they're all moving online, trying to say that they're trying to be internet marketers, the phone book companies, but they're pretty bad at it.
One of the great things about local lead gen, as far as web-based advertising, is compared to all of these methods, the service sells itself, because you can have so much more granular analytics on the back end, so that the business actually knows where their ad dollars are converting for them. So the first two, you have no way of actually knowing what your reach was, or it's very, very difficult to measure. The first three, actually. Direct mail is very cost-intensive. Comparatively, web-based marketing is very inexpensive. And outdoor advertising in the phone book, even more difficult to ascertain how much they're actually getting from that advertising.
And local businesses are used to not knowing their return on investment, but it's kind of funny because once you start doing internet marketing for them, like they expect such huge results out of the internet versus all the other places that they're spending money. It's kind of ridiculous. And I didn't even mention this, but the name of this session is Local Lead Gen Heaven and Hell. The reason for that is because it could either be heaven or it could be hell. I personally am a little down on local lead gen. I mean, I do a lot of it, but I think it could be a complete pain for certain clients. Whereas she's a little more up on local lead gen. She's more positive about it. So we have some differing views, which is nice for you guys to hear. So why don't these small businesses just do it themselves? Most of these guys, these small business owners, they know nothing about the net whatsoever. They maybe know how to answer an email. Most of them probably don't even know how to answer an email. They don't know anything about computers or anything about the net. Small businesses tend to be old school companies with older owners. It's too complicated for them. Even if they are a larger size small business where they have 20 or 30 employees, still, it's too complicated for them to manage. Usually they don't have anybody in-house that's particularly good at internet marketing, although almost every company is going to say they have their internet guru, and you're going to have to meet with their internet guru, and they're going to say, they're going to try to vet you, and they'll try to steal your ideas. But most of them are pretty atrocious, the internet people that they have hired. They can't afford testing, so they'll try something, like they'll go on their own and try Google paid search or search engine marketing. They'll say they get terrible results, Google stinks, whatever. But they just don't actually know what they're doing, and they can't afford to test ads. So they make quick split decisions about where they should spend their advertising dollars without any actual information. So it's a problem for them. And they just don't know where to start. So they don't know if they should be spending their money on Google, or should they be spending their money on Yahoo or Facebook ads or whatever the hot thing is right now. So it's pretty confusing for them. They all know that they have to do something, but a lot of them don't do anything.
The other thing I'd add about small businesses is that a lot of them don't have the time. Most small businesses run on such low margins, or they're so overworked that they know that the most profitable thing they can do is work on their business. So if you're approaching them to pitch them with local lead gen services, one of your strongest selling angles is basically saying that you'll take the marketing out of their hands, and they can then take that time that they would have otherwise directed there and focus it back on things that are profitable for them, back on their business.
Saying that you're full service and that they're not going to have to do anything is also a pretty good selling point to them, because when they're hiring an outside company, they think, oh, well, now I'm going to have to, do this, or I'm going to have to do that. You got to explain that it's really full service. You're taking care of everything and just delivering them the lead, because otherwise they get very nervous about it. So what's the secret formula to local lead gen? You're going to get a secret formula here. Targeted traffic plus landing page equals leads. Sell the leads for profit. It's pretty damn simple. There's no secret. It's one of the simplest things. It's basic affiliate marketing, except there's not a lot of competition, and you have to manage the advertiser.
And this is in part why I'm so optimistic about local lead gen, because if you've been doing Facebook advertising or advertising for PPC for anything competitive in an affiliate marketing niche, especially CPA, you're very used to having to pay a lot of money per click. All the local stuff that I do is just pennies in comparison, especially if you're geo-targeting on almost every paid search platform that you could possibly imagine. So your potential for profit is much higher. It just requires a lot more upfront work with you setting up a system in the first place.
So going back to the equation, you have your targeted traffic plus your landing page equals leads. So let's take a look at traffic sources that you might use for local lead gen. And obviously the key to local lead gen is geo-targeting. So you can't just use any ad network. You need to make sure that you can geo-target down to a specific usual radius of a small business, because a lot of small businesses are very geo-targeting. That's what they need, is the geo-targeting. So for instance, a plumber, you might have 5 or 10 miles that they're willing to travel to go do a job. So to find advertising that's only within 5 or 10 miles of a certain town is not that easy to do. So there's certain traffic sources that work particularly well. One of them is search engines. For instance, paid search on Google, Yahoo, or Bing. Now Yahoo and Bing are the same, but I use primarily Google. It's very effective because it's somebody is trying to get a demand. They're looking for information about a particular subject, so you already know they're in the market. So running your ads on paid search tends to make a lot of sense and convert probably the best for me out of any traffic source that I use. It can get quite expensive though. And local clicks are not that cheap on search engines, especially Google. On the automotive side, I've had clients that have paid anywhere from $2 to $15 per click, depending on what the keyword is. So for this particular traffic source, it's not that cheap, but it does convert particularly well. For organic search, I'm going to refer you over to Amanda because this is her specialty.
For organic search, essentially we're talking about getting sites to rank organically in the local 7-pack. Are most of you familiar with the local 7-pack? Just raise your hand if you don't know what I'm talking about. All right. If you go into Google and you query city name plus service or plus product, whatever you want, you'll actually see a map, and it'll have A, B, C, D, E, F, 7 different businesses with Google Places listing in the hyperlink. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the local 7-pack. For organic search marketing for local businesses, the way that has been working for me is you either generate a microsite that you can get to rank in that 7-pack and then sell those leads back to businesses that you have a contract or a contractual agreement with that are looking for those leads, or you can work from the client's site, which often has a lot more history, probably more backlinks, a lot more age, and get that to rank much, much more quickly. The great thing about Google Local is that on the whole, it's pretty easy as far as SEO is concerned to get things to rank. I'll say that with a caveat though, because back in late October, they totally changed over the Google Local algorithms so that they have this new 7-pack for almost everything that directs to a Google Places page, which is unfortunately like a Google-centric lander, if you will. And what that did was it effectively killed directory sites, which is actually how I started in local lead gen in the first place. I had directory sites for small businesses that I sold advertising to, and those businesses later approached me and asked me to do that for them. ask me to generate more leads for them specifically rather than having them pay for advertising. So unfortunately, Google Local is constantly shifting, and it is something that you have to keep abreast with, but it is easy to find ways to rank if you're willing to do the work and reverse engineer things that are ranking already.
Google Local even caused a problem for paid search because on certain searches, the map overlays the paid search ads. So even though I'm not an organic guy particularly, it still affects me on paid search because you're not getting the same kind of click-through rate as you were before they made all the changes. Another source of traffic that you can use for geo-targeting, geo-targeted traffic, would be the Google Content Network or any other search engine content network that has good targeting. I've found that it converts fairly well. It doesn't convert as well as paid search does, but it's a good way to get a large distribution across sites you may or may not have ever thought of advertising on, and you could still locally target the traffic itself.
For content network search, I've never done a broad content network search for a local proprietor, but if you have some geo-specific URLs that you know are being targeted by people in the area of the business that it's actually located in, that can actually convert really well. So I'm actually based in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a city of neighborhoods, and I know that there are a number of neighborhood blogs. And if I target them in the content network, I know that those ads are actually going to appear in front of people that live there and may actually be interested in those services. And it turns out to be very cheap per click.
One thing on the Google Content Network, which I'm assuming people have used here, is that most people don't know that they have a retargeting program on Google Content Network. So what retargeting is when you run a campaign, you put a little code on your landing page or your website. When a user comes to the site, regardless of how they got there, organic search, paid search, any other media buying you're doing, it drops a cookie on them, and then Google will serve ads throughout their content network of your website. So since they already know that the person's been to your website, you can remarket to them over and over and over again, and it's a good way to sometimes close the sale if you can't get them to convert on the first shot. And it ends up being, it's very cheap per impression. It ends up sometimes being kind of expensive per click. The only way that you could bid for retargeting on Google, to the best of my knowledge, is by bidding on a cost per click basis, and I've had to bid like $5, $6, $7 cost per click to get impressions to serve for retargeting, but they tend to get a decent click-through rate, and it ends up being maybe $1 or $2 per click by the time it's all said and done, what I get charged. But it is a good way to close the sale if you're not converting them on the first time around.
One simple hack for paid search, and then I'll get off this, if you want to close a sale, is to include your lead tracking phone number in it. If you have a phone number for the business, I know I'm jumping ahead of what we had originally intended, but if you have a phone number, definitely include that in your ad, because phone leads actually convert much better than web leads in almost all cases, and there's a good chance that you could get someone to actually call the number without actually clicking on the back end on the ad. So
yeah,
free
totally
traffic.
True. Yep. If you should at least split test putting in a phone number into your paid search ad or any other media buy that you're doing. Facebook ads is the next probably most popular local traffic source. You can target down to the actual town that people live in because all the Facebook information is based on self-identified information that people are putting in their profiles. It's very good as far as geo-targeting goes. It's very hard to get a good click-through rate on Facebook ads. At least that's what I find for local businesses, unless you have a really good hook. But it's effective. It's a good, I would definitely start with paid search if I were starting a campaign and then move into something like Facebook ads, but it is effective.
The nice thing for affiliates is that if you've been doing Facebook ads for a while, they totally approve local stuff like that in comparison. So if
you're talking minutes on Facebook ads for local business.
It's actually a really nice perk.
So if you're used to doing it on the affiliate side, you can know it could take hours to get an ad reviewed. It's insane how fast it is on the local side. I have no idea how they know.
Have you ever had an ad disproved?
Never. It doesn't matter what the ad says. Everything gets approved. You don't have to follow any guidelines whatsoever on the local side. I guess they identify your account as local, but there's no ad approval really. It does go into pending review, but usually within a minute or two, it's approved. I don't know how that works or why that works, but it does. I guess you had the same experience.
Yeah.
MySpace ads. I rarely use MySpace ads, but if I have a campaign that I really need to scale out, it's a good extra source of traffic. They have decent geo-targeting, terrible click-through rates in my experience. but you can run full display ads there like leaderboards and skyscrapers, so it could be good for getting some additional exposure for a landing page that you're trying to promote. You ever use MySpace ads?
No. Who uses MySpace?
I don't know, but I've gotten some results out there, and I don't know if anybody knows Shoe Money. I would imagine you do. He did around the Cash for Clunkers time when that program was in the United States. He did a case study where he generated some ridiculous amount of leads for a local car dealer using MySpace ads and the Cash for Clunkers. So it definitely works, and there's definitely results there. Now, those are probably where I would start, and they're the most effective ways of advertising a landing page or trying to generate leads as far as the traffic source goes. Then there's two more traffic sources which get a little more complicated. One of them is independent media buys. Depending on the type of client you're managing and what the value of the lead is, sometimes you'll want to do an independent media buy. Similar to what Amanda said, where there's a local community site and you want to buy a banner on it because you think that the community is going to be interested in your business. But at the same time, there's also media that you might want to buy, like newspaper websites, radio websites, anything that's locally targeted. So some clients are really into the newspaper still, and they'll advertise on the newspaper websites. So you might have to do that depending on the kind of situation you have with the client. The results are typically absolutely horrible, in my experience. CPM rates for newspaper websites, they could go anywhere from like $20 to $50 CPM, and the click-through rates are atrocious. Like they're worse than Facebook ads, which you can get like a 50-cent CPM on, and they don't convert well either. So it's probably not the first place I would start as far as buying media on a newspaper website. If a client asks you, you might want to advise them that the results are just not good. I've tested it time and time again, and it's terrible.
My problem with the newspaper websites is that you actually can't control the placement. So you can put in a banner ad, and you know that it's guaranteed to be like that size, but you can't control what page it's on.
So it depends on how you buy. Sometimes you buy a run of network, but you can also buy independent pages. It costs quite a bit more, sometimes 2 to 3 times the price. You're talking about CPM rates like $50, $60, $70 CPM. So they won't tell you that necessarily. They'll tell you it costs $10,000 to run here for the month. But when you back it out and figure out how much traffic that page gets, it's like a $60 or $70 or $80 CPM. It's very, very expensive. Network media buys can be effective. And what I mean by that is larger advertising networks like Advertise.com, Casal Media, Tribal Fusion, anybody that has local targeting and they serve ads on a multitude of websites. If you need a lot of traffic and you need to scale out a campaign, it's one way to go. The only problem with it is that the minimum buys can get quite expensive. So,
didn't you do something with Twitter for local lead gen?
Yes, I did.
How'd that work out for you?
The return on since it's free, Twitter, there is leads on there to be had, but the time you have to spend, I think, to market on Twitter to get local lead gen leads is not that good. It's a lot of time for not a lot of results. But it might be something to supplement, or if you're just starting out, it might be a way to get free traffic and try to sell those leads, and try to build a bankroll that you can use to buy paid ads. And geo-targeting is always key. So if you're not geo-targeting, you're not doing local lead gen. So you're going to run into this time and time again is the landing page versus website issue, which Amanda started talking about. I almost exclusively use landing pages. 90% of the time, I probably use a landing page, and I usually buy a new domain. This way I have full control over the landing page. With small businesses, they are totally inept at any kind of online anything. So they don't know who's hosting their website. They don't know who's in control of their login and password to cPanel or FTP or anything that you need to get to. So trying to deal with them is almost impossible and a huge waste of time. So a lot of the time, I'll just make a landing page. Won't charge them for it, if it's a lead gen campaign. Just make the landing page and have complete control over it. It allows you to add any kind of tracking that you need to add. So on the fly, you can change your tracking pixels. It's really easy to update because you're in full control over it. And it's not expensive to get yourself like a shared server that you can put local lead gen landing pages on. They're not high volume traffic, so you don't need any kind of crazy server. It's easier to test because you can make changes on the fly, use scripts for testing, like Visual Website Optimizer or whatever you want to use. And you maintain complete control over the landing page, which is good for the reasons I already mentioned, but it's also good because inevitably you lose clients. It doesn't matter how good you are, but you lose clients, and you might want to keep that landing page for whatever reason to maybe sell to another client. So let's say that not every landing page is going to have the name of the business. Maybe it'll be generic or it'll be blind as to what the name of the business is. You can just redirect your leads to another business and sign a new contract with them if somebody drops you. So, you're dealing with a contractor or a real estate agent or whatever it is. You can now just sell to somebody else when your relationship dissolves with a particular client. So it's good to maintain control over that because it's an actual asset of your company. Another reason that you might not want to use a business's name on a landing page, sometimes you do it blind, sometimes you don't, is because let's say they have a bad reputation. There are certain businesses that have terrible reputations in the community. Car dealers, for one of them, tend to have horrible reputations, some of them. So you may not want that on the landing page because when somebody sees that it's, whatever this car dealership is, they're going to be like, I'm not going to deal with them. I've heard such bad stories. And that ruins your lead gen campaign. So if you're in a situation like that, you can always go blind, make it out like you're a third-party lead generator, and then just sell the lead to the client without the consumer ever knowing who the actual client was. So, and then the dealer can deal with whatever their reputation issue is instead of you paying for clicks that don't convert. Now on the website side, I don't do a lot of the website marketing. I do more of the landing pages, so I'll let Amanda.
I've done a lot more of website actual lead gen for clients with existing websites, but these were my problems. One, very frequently, client websites are nepotistic. Somebody that they knew generated that website, and it's absolutely horrible. So you end up signing a contract to do lead gen, and then you get to their website, and it's often clients that really want to control everything, which unfortunately is another battle that you're going to have to wage if you want to get into client work. You get in there and you realize that it just requires such a massive revamp that it takes so much more of your time that it starts whittling away down at your ROI. And as a note of caution, that's actually one of my big problems with local lead gen is that it's very hard for me to draw the line when I'm doing organic stuff and helping a client on their website to stop at lead gen, because so often they want website development services or search engine optimization.
But they don't want to pay for it.
But they don't want to pay for it, exactly.
So they think that because they contracted you to sell them leads, all of a sudden, like, you work for them, which you don't.
Not recognizing that lead gen is profitable because if you're an affiliate marketer or if you're used to creating ads and landers and banners and you know how to actually generate those things, your time is this much and your profit could be this much. But if you're actually doing SEO and website development, all that other stuff for them, your ROI just goes right down the crapper.
Absolutely. So a major part of local lead gen is tracking. So how are you going to track these leads? How are you going to be able to report, how many leads you got and be able to bill for them? So there's different aspects of what you need to track. There's both emails and phone calls can be a lead. And for emails, it could be, you can have a system that's from the simplest system to the most complex. So one of the things that a lot of people use, and I even use sometimes, is mail forwarders. If you have a cPanel, like a Linux web server, you have unlimited mail forwarders normally in your account. So when you have a landing page, you set up a mail forwarder, such as, whatever the client's name is at yourdomainname.com, and then you just forward it to multiple email addresses. So you could set up the forwarder to forward to the client, and then I would set up a second forwarder to forward to yourself. This way you could track how many leads the client's getting, and you can monitor the quality and see all the leads. So if you don't have a database set up and you just want something quick and easy, a mail forwarder works. And they're free, easy, very easy to set up. Another way to go about it is if you don't want to set up your own database and your whole tracking system for email leads, like having your own CRM, you can use hosted forms. So probably a lot of people have heard of companies like Wufoo, and I use Logiforms. And what it is it's already a fully functional form system that has a database on the back end. Usually charge some kind of small monthly fee, like 20 bucks a month or 10 bucks a month, and you can make as many forms as you want, or at least a decent amount of forms. And what it'll do is it'll keep all those email leads on the back end in a database, and then it has the systems to be able to forward out the leads also to the client, as well as to yourself if you want. It's a little more complex than using mail forwarders, but if you need a more complex solution, it works. Another reason you might want to use something like that is if you're selling to multiple clients, and let's say one client's buying these zip codes, one client's buying those zip codes, you can set up a script using a hosted form to deliver different leads to different clients depending on different variables. A much more complicated solution, which I use, is called Lead Mesh, and they are a hosted lead distribution system. They integrate with your forms. They have a database which stores your leads, and then you can set up tons and tons of different variables to deliver leads to multiple clients and be able to bill them. It's kind of pricey. It's like $400 a month plus some kind of pretty big setup fee. But if you get into a situation where you're really delivering a lot of leads, something like Lead Mesh can help you out. The second part is phone calls. Although on the email side, affiliates might be pretty used to using mail forwarders and things like that, they're probably not that used to tracking phone calls. So what you do to track phone calls, you use tracking numbers. There's two kinds of tracking numbers. There's local tracking numbers, which is like your area code. It just looks like a normal phone number. And then there's also toll-free numbers like 877, 888, 800 numbers. And there's multiple companies that sell these type of numbers. There's companies like VoiceStar, 800 Response, If by Phone, Mongoose Metrics. I think Mongoose Metrics actually integrates with Google Analytics, so you can track your results of the phone calls to your analytics account to see what's converting.
Do you notice the difference between local and toll-free numbers as far as conversion rates go?
Absolutely have tested that, and local numbers for local businesses tend to do a lot better than toll-free numbers for local businesses. And the only reason I can think of is it makes the company seem more local. It makes it seem smaller. I think when people see an 800 number, an 877 number, they're like, oh, this is some big company. I'm going to get sent to like, you know, an automated system and whatever. So they are more hesitant to call an 800 number. I think with the local numbers, the results are a lot better, personally.
I agree. That's
I
why
almost
I loved it.
always use local numbers. But most people that are looking to track numbers don't even know about local numbers. They just assume that everything's a tracking 800 number, which it's not. Twilio and Google Voice are two other systems that allow you to track phone calls. Twilio is actually cloud-based. You don't have to sign any big commitment with them. You pay based by the number and the amount of minutes that you're using. And Google Voice is totally free. You can forward phone calls using it. It's kind of ghetto, but you can use it.
Yeah, there's no analytics back. Well, there's very limited analytics about using Google Voice, but it's absolutely free. And if you're not doing, how should I say, if you're not doing a very large client, if you're doing a lot of little small clients, and maybe you're scaling in one vertical into multiple cities, it's totally brain dead easy. Google Voice is definitely the place that I would start if you don't have the capital to invest in a call tracking system. It works.
And one thing I didn't mention is another advantage to these tracking numbers, not only telling you how many phone calls or how many minutes that the phone call lasted, it actually can track the actual phone call itself. So you can hear the exchange between the small business and the consumer. And what this does for you is when there's a dispute with the business and they say your leads suck, you know, I can't convert anything, you can go back and listen to the phone calls and see what happened on the phone. And oftentimes you're going to find that it's pretty interesting what's happening on the phone. They're just absolutely terrible at dealing with the customers. And if we have some time, I have some phone calls we can listen to.
With those services, is there a notification that the customer's call is going to be recorded?
Yes, at the beginning of the phone call, it says, you know, your call will be recorded for quality assurance purposes. I think that's a legal issue where you have to do that. So all the systems that sell phone numbers, they all say it at the beginning. There's also some other things that you can do with these phone tracking systems. There's something called Call Whisper, and what that does is you can have it whisper to the client when they pick up the phone where the lead came from. So like they pick up the phone when it rings and they can go, hi, this lead was delivered by Ad Hustler or whatever it is, so that they know where the lead came from and that they just bought this lead and it's not just somebody that's calling up on the phone. Not that it matters how they handle the phone call because they handle it terribly either way.
That's actually a really important point. One of the big problems that I've had with clients is that you provide them these leads and then they don't act on those leads fast enough. It's really critical that you stress to your client when you're actually doing the pitch or when you're signing the contract that they understand that they're responsible for closing that sale. It's not up to you. You're just generating the lead for them. And that it's critical that they get the person who's actually referring to them in their buy window, which is almost always less than 24 hours and ideally is as soon as possible.
And you're not selling them a lead. You're not selling them a sale. You're selling them a lead. A lot of the times these clients think that when they pick up the phone, the person is going to just throw money at them. They're selling them you're selling them somebody that's interested in buying the product or service that they deliver. You're not selling them a sale. they have to make the sale. That's their responsibility.
Just to back up what you guys are saying, I did a lot of work on real estate agency, and we found that the magic mark is 10 minutes. When you're dealing with internet leads especially,
You're 100% right.
you can't call them back within 10 minutes, you've lost 90% of the value of that lead. The next day, you've lost about 99%.
I can agree with that stat. And you know, you should have these businesses calling them back within minutes. You know, they're buying the lead, and when somebody goes and puts a lead in, they're interested at that point in talking to somebody, not like 48, 72 hours later. That's probably good for a lot of these clients, 48 or 72 hours later. You could probably go back a month later, and they wouldn't have answered any of the leads you sent them. So,
What's actually really important about getting back to people, or one of the things that you can do that could be really helpful for your client, is to make sure that if you have a lander and it's an email submit or whatever submit, that if it's after their business hours for some reason, that it says that on the back end after they've submitted that form, so the client knows not to expect somebody to call them back in the next hour if they submitted a form at midnight. I mean, you'd think that would be logical, but you want to impress upon them that you will definitely be contacted, but you'll be contacted during business hours. And you could do the same thing on a voicemail answering system.
yep. And you can, if you don't want to do it on the landing page because you think maybe it'll kill your conversion rate, you can also do it on the thank you page of the form. So if they if they put in the email lead, when it says thank you for submitting your email lead or whatever it says, you can say we're closed right now, but we'll have somebody contact you at 9 a.m. or whatever you want to say, and that could help the lead stay a little warmer.
And if you do a little Google search, there are a lot of PHP scripts out there that will actually look at what time it is that the person's on your site that you can add to your website. It's pretty easy to do. It's cut and paste.
So there's not every local business works for local lead gen. There are certain proven local lead gen niches. I actually stole this list from Chad from CDF Networks because he's really good at local lead gen. I asked him to be on the panel, but he's a little shy. So we stole this list. Some of the good proven local lead gen niches are automotive, and all the niches underneath that. Legal, you can probably command quite a bit for a lead in legal. Insurance also commands quite a bit for a lead. Professional services, real estate, event planning, health and beauty things, they probably command less for a lead. Education commands quite a bit for a lead. Travel, less because they don't make that much as far as the commission goes. And construction/home services, you can make quite a bit for a lead, but they're probably some of the worst clients to deal with next to restaurants.
What's awesome about local lead gen is that you can actually kind of go with the market. So last year, what I actually did pretty well doing that I had not actually broken into before was going after trash and haul out services, which I'm not sure that's up there, but that's actually a pretty lucrative lead to get because
like 1-800 got junk and
exactly
yeah.
That kind of thing. But local proprietors, especially when the foreclosures were climbing and people were buying these houses with all sorts of stuff left in them, there are a lot of things that constantly make money no matter what. And the great thing about local lead gen is that you'll always find something that is profitable for someone.
Right. And in addition, so you have to also take into account when you're going to pick a niche that you want to attack, do these clients pay? Certain clients pay a lot better than others. Restaurants don't pay. They don't pay their bills, period. Automotive, they pay, but they're hard to deal with. Real estate, not very good payers. What? Doctors, hard to get paid. So it depends on the kind of situation you have set up. You might want to get prepayment or credit card on file because these small businesses are very hard to get paid by. So
I actually used to work for law firms, and I just adopted the practice of asking for a retainer, especially if it was going to be something that I knew that I was going to put considerable time or effort or money into in advance. I'd ask for a retainer up front to at least cover the costs in the event of a non-paying client. My biggest problem client was actually a dentist.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
I like credit cards because then you could just build them. So we wanted to show some actual data and some case studies about things that we've done as far in the local lead gen niche. I don't know if anybody reads my blog at hustler.com. I'm sure some people do. But I had a pretty popular post about how I made $1.7 million in car sales despite a rough economy. And this is the first time I'm actually showing anybody the landing page that created that. So the situation in this case was I had a client that was a car dealer. They got in some kind of trouble with their manufacturer, and the manufacturer punished them by making them buy 25 of these horribly hard to sell cars. They were very niche cars that really don't sell, and the manufacturer forced them to buy the cars and sell them. So this client was pretty worried because they couldn't sell these cars in the newspaper no matter how cheap they made them. They couldn't sell them using cable TV, radio, or any other kind of local marketing because it's such a niche car. So they asked, what can you do for us? And I did a lead gen campaign for them targeting specific areas trying to sell this car. So I actually made 2 landing pages. This landing page failed terribly. It was telling about how a limited time offer, so there was exclusivity. I had an email form. I had, pictures of the car. I had, how much it was going to be discounted because it was actually significantly discounted, this car. We had some text that vehicles were delivered right to your door. We actually had a deal set up where we were delivering the cars and special interest rates available. This type of landing page does really well for me. Usually these kind of blind landing pages that are really well designed, I do very well with them, but in this particular case, did terribly. So within like a day or two of not getting any leads, I changed it up to a really successful landing page, which was this landing page. It looks not so great because it's full with text, but there's a lot of aspects of this landing page that worked out in our favor. One of them being the scarcity on the top. And there really was a scarcity because we really needed to sell these cars because the dealer was hurting. We were showing them how much they were getting off, the same kind of sales points, but we actually broke it down and showed the price. So the MSRP on this car was $38,415. They were able to discount the car quite significantly, $14,500. And even doing that and putting an ad in the newspaper resulted in no leads because this particular car doesn't sell. It's just not a great car. So it didn't sell no matter what price they put in the newspaper. So what we did here is we broke it down and showed people legitimately what they were going to pay. There was a disclaimer, but this was a really legitimate campaign. There was nothing really weird or sketchy going on. Showed also a lease price that you can pay to lease out the car. We had a link to the window sticker so that people could see it was legit and it showed stock numbers and what was in the car. And then we were basically, we kept inventory. This was towards the end of the campaign. You can see there's crossed out colors. We had all the different colors listed here, and we were just crossing them out as it went and leaving it on the page just to show that the cars were actually selling. So it didn't look like it was scammy. And this page did really well. We showed how many were left in stock, and this was a killer campaign. What ended up happening is the dealer did so well after selling 25 of them, they called up the manufacturer and they asked them if they could buy like the rest of whatever the manufacturer had. So they ended up selling out this manufacturer's entire inventory of this particular car. And these were the landing page results. The total ad dollars spent was $32,133. There was 19,537 clicks to the landing page, 852 email leads, 647 phone calls, 68 vehicles were sold in total, which was the entire remaining inventory in the United States of this model vehicle. The approximate vehicle sale price was $25,000. And the total revenue was $1,700,000 in the worst downturn of automotive sales, probably in U.S. history. So there was actually pretty good results on this. And that's, yeah, I'm not going to go into that. But that's really how it worked out. And it did really, really well. And I brought some other, did somebody raise a hand back there? I don't really want to go into that either because I don't like to talk about specific clients or what they're doing because nobody wants their stuff shared. I have a designer that works for me.
So I noticed that we just had details all the way down, saving.
On the car?
As well as the 500 down, 399, which is pretty amazing. That's how you get people to get a car.
This was set up similar to a traditional print ad that car dealers do, except it was cleaner. A lot of the time when you open up a print ad, you'll just see like crap all over the page. Like they're terribly designed ads. This, we took some of the same aspects of it, like showing the MSRP, showing the actual price, and we made it work.
Who made that decision? You or your designer?
I made the decision. So I don't particularly like the way this page looks, to tell you the truth. I like cleaner pages, but the other pages didn't do well. So when something doesn't do well, we change it. Doesn't matter what I think.
Have used this for other cars?
Yep. Yep.
Still successful?
Very successful. See, if you have a very good deal, it's successful. If your deal is awful, it's not going to convert no matter what you do. So if you're selling the car and it's for MSRP and you're listing the MSRP on the page, people are going to be like, I'm not paying MSRP, and they just go back. So you do have to have something aggressive on the page.
What did you
This was all paid search, almost predominantly Google. I actually bought also an exact match domain on the manufacturer and the model, make and model of the car as well as the year, and we were marketing under that. It did say the dealer name on it, but like real small on the bottom. It made the whole thing looked kind of manufacturer-y, not really like it was a dealer. Somebody over here?
Okay, so something like this, go back to the next page or whatever. I know you can't say specific.
This page?
Yeah. Now, you devised your plan with them on what you were going to get paid and stuff. Do it on the ad dollars, you do it on the value of the car.
The value of the car. I mean, it depends on your situation. We'll get into a couple slides down, like how you can charge for different campaigns, but this one was done based on the total sales,
Not on the leads.
not on the leads. I mean, this was a little weird situation.
Without divulging the information, can you give us an example of an exact match domain that would?
Like, let's say an exact match domain like 07HyundaiAccent.com, you know, something like that, where it tends to get a good quality score on Google because it actually matches the kind of keywords you're going to want to bid on. And it's very easy to get because they don't usually buy those kind of weird, longer domains, you know, 07 or 2007 Hyundai Accent, something like that, where it's branded towards the car and not towards the dealer. Somebody over here? So,
Typically, when you are going for local, do you always split test at the beginning with 2 different landing pages, or do you just start with one?
it depends on how I'm doing. Usually we'll start, I have a pretty good idea of what works at this point, so I usually know what's going to work or what's going to be close to working. I'll usually let it go for a day or two, see how it converts. If it's converting well, I'll tweak it. If it's converting really poorly, I'll just totally redesign the whole page. So I'll usually let it go for a day or two. I'm quick to make decisions. I don't sit around like, you know, let's see how this does for a week. I'm like, a day. How does it do? If it doesn't do well, it's redesigned and then tweaked at that point to get better and better results.
Yeah, Google has some problems with bid content. You can't do most to any of the lead gen networks. You know, you can't direct to any of the lead gen networks to the landing pages because Google considers them to be bid content.
Yep.
How do you get around that problem when you're doing a landing page?
All right, well, there's some things that you can do. One of the things that you could do is you could do some link building before you start the campaign, sometimes to get it indexed, and sometimes you'll get a better quality score that way. There's one trick that I use. I'm sure now the trick will never work again. But like, let's say you set up a WordPress blog, and you set it up on the root of the domain. So let's say 07 Hyundai Accent again, which this is just totally made up, that domain. Let's say you do a blog or some kind of like just a few blog posts about that car and about the sale and just lots of good content. Let that get indexed, and then you could do like the landing page on a subfolder of that domain. So 07HyundaiAccent.com / you know, buy a car, whatever it is. On that page, you put the landing page. When you go to set up the text ads, you direct all the text ads to the blog, and then use your destination URL as the subdomain, the subfolder of the domain. So you're actually directing the search engines towards the blog, but just because most of these search engines allow you to use, as long as it's the same domain, some kind of tracking URL. So you're just using that tracking URL to send it to a different page on the website, which is thin content. So that's one way that I get around it.
I actually didn't know that was a trick. I thought everybody did that.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys know about it? I don't know. So yeah, it's one way to, you do that also?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I started a microsite. I build out a bunch of content. I launched an aggressive link building campaign, especially for local niches with linking that will either get me the anchor text that I want to rank, or linking within my geographic region is very important, especially for getting indexed in the local 7-pack. I set up reviews if reviews are applicable on Yelp, etc. And then I put the lander as a subfolder, and that's what I use for PPC.
We're on the same page and we didn't even know it. What's up, man?
I don't want to get you off topic, but what's your most effective local link building technique? If you're going to do it real quickly.
You can do like blog commenting, you know, like something.
Something not super quality, but it gets you quick.
Just gets you indexed quickly. I wouldn't run a landing page that wasn't indexed. Like, that's one tip that I give you.
Yeah.
If you run a landing page that's not indexed through Google AdWords, chances are you're going to get a poor quality score. So I would at least wait a day or two or whatever it's going to take you to get that page indexed before you start running paid search. Yeah, the landing page. Yeah, both. Like, an age domain is better on paid search, but still, as long as you get it indexed, you have half a chance. If you don't get it indexed, you really don't have a chance.
One quick hack, or I guess ARB opportunity that I've seen lately, is that when I set up a new campaign for a new microsite and I set up a Google AdWords, whatever for it, they almost always email me back because it's very local and it looks like a small business from whatever the domain is that I bought. They almost always email me back with a $100 AdWords credit. And at the bottom of that email, there's a phone number, and eventually they'll try and upsell you on Google actually managing your PPC campaign. So I haven't used it yet, but the opportunity is there. I actually had a conversation with a guy at Google, which I couldn't believe somebody answered the phone at Google. It never happens. But he basically said that Google wants to help small and local businesses develop PPC campaigns that are profitable for them because they're in turn profitable for Google. So if you wanted, you could set up something with Google where they will actually generate your PPC campaign for you, or for your client in this case, as long as they're willing to spend $15 a day or $450 a month. And then you can subtract that from the $100 ad credit. So for the price of $350 a month in ad spend, Google can actually set up and manage the PPC campaigns according to their best practices, which are almost always going to get approved.
Okay. Question?
What are either you or Amanda ever experimented with PPC tracking?
I
haven't.
personally haven't. I don't think that the volume is going to be there. I've seen a couple blog posts on people that have done it. I don't remember who wrote the blog, but I've never tried it. I could see maybe getting results, but I think it's going to be hard to scale because any PPV network, their tracking for the most part is only based on the country. So you're going to have to target probably local newspaper websites and smaller, smaller URLs, and the volume is just not going to be there.
It's actually an important note that your conversion rate is actually going to be very proportional to the granularity of what it is that you're targeting. So it's not good enough for a lot of the things that I do to target like York County, PA. I have to target the city, and if possible, the town, and if possible, the neighborhood. The more targeted you can get, the more likely you're going to be able to convert the person on that page to actually filling in the form or calling up your client.
So to move on a little bit, I have a couple different landing pages we've done also, just to give you a little bit of sampling of different kind of landing pages that work. This was something I did for a heating and air conditioning company, and it was set up similar to that other car page where there was a price minus like the monthly discount, price too low to advertise, calling out for discount. And I mean, it got a little weird on the bottom with ask about this rebate, ask about that, which were legitimate rebates, but they just didn't apply to necessarily the unit that this was selling. There's some disclaimer info, but regardless, this did really well. The problem was that as soon as it did really well, the client fired us because they couldn't handle installing air conditioners like what they do. So that's one of the problems you're going to get with local lead gen. Is once you get a successful campaign, it might all be over pretty quickly, and you might be able to sell it to someone else though. Another page was I had a client that wanted to sell used cars, which it's kind of hard to do a landing page for used cars because the cars change all the time. So a pretty unique idea I came up with was get your top secret under $12,000 used car list. It's a really crappy looking page, but it converted off the hook. I've never seen anything convert like this. And we just had an Excel file on the back end with the inventory of the dealer with all their cars that were under $12,000, and people were submitting like crazy. Then the car salesmen were calling up and saying, we have this car, we have that car, come in, trying to set the appointment. So it was a way to get the lead for a used car, which is very hard to do. Another landing page, which I actually didn't do, and this is Amanda's landing page, is this one.
Believe it or not, clean and super simple has worked really well for me in hyper-local niches. I do a lot of stuff with pet care. That actually happened to be the first niche or directory site that I broke out. What I actually like about this page that seems to have made the difference is, first of all, the orange call to action button. That seems to convert really well. I tried it with the form actually being on this page instead of on the jump, and it actually didn't convert as well because people, for whatever reason, seem to like the text. And I'd say that if you have a local business, if you can incorporate video, that has actually helped me a lot. The conversion rates took a big jump, like almost 20% when I included a video. I think it's trust.
So you've seen some landing pages now. You know your traffic sources. You can start your own campaigns now. But there's some positives and some negatives of local lead gen. Now, the positives are that there's low competition compared to other types of marketing like affiliate marketing where everybody runs the same offer on the same traffic sources, competing for like pennies on the dollar. You want to go on with the positives? I'll go into negatives, not like negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really easy to sell. Services offered oftentimes fill a consumer need, true business model that isn't going to go away. And right now, there's almost no competition involved at all. Almost no overhead. I mean, really, the first thing that I would invest in, if I invested in anything, is ad spend, and after that, maybe a call tracking platform. But there's almost no overhead at all, even relative to affiliate marketing. And the service absolutely sells itself, because the way that you can pitch it to your client is that they don't actually pay for anything up front. They just pay for whatever it is that you deliver on the back end, unless you want a retainer.
So the negatives of local lead gen. Clients are stupid. I wrote this, I said it. They're just stupid. So, you know, they'll buy a lead and then they won't answer it, or, you know, they'll say, why isn't my ad running? You know,
I've gotten that call.
They won't be paying for specific ads or specific placement. They'll be paying for a lead, but they will complain night and day that they don't see their ad on Google. Then they'll go to the ad and they'll click on it, and then that costs me money, and then they don't get a lead. And why isn't the page converting well? Because I keep clicking on it. They're just really not that smart. A lot of these local businesses, they're pretty hard to deal with. Small businesses cannot close the sale. I've met very few small business owners or anybody that works at a small business that can actually answer a phone properly. You would think that would be an easy thing to do and to try to get somebody to walk into their business, but you know, they could be straight up nasty on the phone. They don't want to help people. I've heard phone calls where somebody asks a question, they refuse to give them an answer. It's pretty crazy, the way that they deal with their clients. Clients themselves are extremely flaky. Even if you provide fantastic results, some still cancel. Like, you could show them that you got them 50,000 leads and they made $2 million off of it, and they'll be like, I can get a better return on investment in the newspaper. So I really don't understand their reasoning, but they just have no reasoning and they do whatever they want. They're extremely needy, like we were talking about before. You sign up for a local lead gen campaign, then all of a sudden they want you to do their website and do this and do that. When you quote them a price, they think it's all included. I don't know, like, you walk into their business and you buy a drink, you don't think that the sandwich is included, but.
It's actually a very appropriate analogy.
And there's lack of scalability for the most part on a lot of campaigns, unless you're dealing with much larger clients. So, you know, that heating and air conditioning company, eventually they're going to run out of resources to be able to service the sales that they have, and they're not going to have people be able to answer the phone, so you're going to have to stop the campaign. So it's not like once you get a winner, you could scale it out to the millions of dollars every time. You're going to have problems with lead capping and that lack of scalability.
To touch on two quick things on this particular slide, the why is my ad not showing? Once you actually get some traffic, I'm betting dollars to donuts that you're going to find out that almost everybody surfs for local businesses while they're at work. So I often incorporate day parting into my paid ads, and it's very frustrating to have a client call you up at night and be like, where's my ad? It's not on Google. And you explain day parting to them the day before, which does happen. With respect to the lack of scalability and lead capping, there are some ways around it. Lead capping, one of the great things to do if you actually have your own site or own lander, as Brandon had talked about earlier, if you can get around that, you can cap out with one client and then upsell to another client, or take that same lander and use it in multiple cities and just adjust the text.
All right, we're running out of time here, but just to run through different pricing models that you have is it's not always going to be per lead if you don't want it to be. You can do per lead, which is the obvious per lead. You know, you ask the client, what do you think you can afford to pay for a lead? You come up with some kind of a deal. You can do per sale, which I don't really recommend in most cases because your fate is in their hands rather than your fate being in your hands, and I don't like my fate in anybody's hands but my own. You could do the hybrid, where they'll pay, let's say, for your ad spend. Like, sometimes you can convince the client that, okay, well, we're going to spend this much money, you pay for the ad spend, and then I'll take, you know, $10 per lead I produce, or I'll take X amount of % of the sale, or whatever it is. Sometimes you can get them to pay for the ad spend so you can reduce your own risk depending on the kind of client. You can charge a management fee where this isn't the most profitable, but let's say, you know, you get a $5,000 paid search campaign, you charge them 20% or 30%. Not the most profitable way to go, but some, you know, marketing companies do that. And you could use your imagination and charge anything any way you want to do it. So you can use any mix of those four things and charge a price. And here's your take-home tips. Facebook is amazing for demographic research. Data doesn't lie. Let the client say how much they can pay for the lead first, then negotiate if needed. You might find that the client is willing to pay a lot more than you thought they were for the lead, and if they are, take advantage of them. Lead spoilage. Client needs to respond while customer is still in the buy mode, so they have to respond quickly. This was actually something that Amanda said. Begin your business with friends and contacts first. Word of mouth works.
Word of mouth absolutely worked for me, because if you have friends that have businesses or friends that know businesses through vendors or people that they work with, your word of mouth can actually spread a lot faster than anything that you could possibly do to promote yourself on the web.
And there's lots of room for client upsells if you want to upsell them. A lot of the stuff I find not to be that profitable, but things like Google Places management, SEO, SEM work, you can upsell once you have a relationship with the client. And just some resources that you could take home is my blog, adhustler.com, is a good resource for local marketing. Amanda Orson, right here, she's good. CDF Networks, Chad from CDF Networks does a lot of local lead gen. He also sells some kind of a info product for learning how to do local lead gen, which is really awesome, and I'm not making a commission to say that. Shoemoney.com has some awesome case studies. Shoe Money's the man. And Wickedfire, which is our favorite forum. They have some great posts about local lead gen and local marketing, local directories, which is, I think is one of the ways you got into it.
Yeah, that's actually how I got into it.
It's local marketing. Wickedfire is worth joining. And as long as you have a thick skin. And that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed. We ran out of time. If you guys have any questions, you could just come up here because we're out of time.
I think we're supposed to tell you to please fill out that survey and drop it off in the back.
Oh yeah, tell them that we rocked.
Please tell them we don't suck.
2 minutes.